Welcome to Diploma Options for Students with Disabilities. My name is Ellie Stack, and I'm the coordinator for special education instruction in Fairfax County Public Schools. Today's presentation was put together in collaboration with Ellen Augusta, a colleague in this Office of Special Education Instruction, and it is adapted from a 2019 presentation under the same name, which was put together in collaboration with the Offices of Assessment and Reporting, Counseling and College and Career Readiness, Career and Transition Services, and Special Education Procedural Support. Today we will be discussing diploma options, including the diploma options available to all students and those that are only available to students with disabilities. We'll be diving into credit accommodations, and then we will end with talking about the industry credential certification requirement. While I mentioned that we will be discussing diploma options for all students, we are not going to dive into details into the diploma options available to all students, but I will be briefly touching on the details that are impacted by the diploma options specifically for students with disabilities. For more information on general diploma options, please contact your child's school. There's information on the Fairfax County webpage, which corresponds with the information in today's presentation. You can find this information by clicking directly on the link on the top of the screen, or rather than writing that down, you can visit www.fcps.edu and search for graduation requirements. After searching for graduation requirements, the results will come up and you will notice that there are options depending on what year the student has started 9th grade. Find the year that corresponds with when your child started 9th grade. As you can see on the screen here, as an example, there's the one for students who started 9th grade in 2018-19 and beyond. And then there's the document for students who started 9th grade in 2016-17 or 17-18. And when you do the full search, you'll see a number of other years that are also included as options. Each of those graduation requirement web pages include information on the standard diploma and the advanced studies diploma. Those are the two diploma options that are available to all students. Those web pages also include information on the applied studies diploma and special education graduation requirements. As I've mentioned before, the Advanced Studies Diploma and the Standard Diploma are diplomas that are available to all students in the state of Virginia. The Modified Standard Diploma is a diploma that is only available to select students with disabilities. And on the screen, you can see that the Modified Standard Diploma is only available to students who entered 9th grade in 2012-13 or prior. And lastly, we have the Applied Studies Diploma. The Applied Studies Diploma is available to all students with disabilities. As we talk about diploma options for all students, there are two terms that we need to have an understanding of as we move forward. Those terms are regarding the credits that are required in order to earn the certain diploma. The first type of credit is the standard credits. Standard credits are awarded when a student passes the associated course. And depending on when your child started 9th grade, there will be a different number of standard credits that are required. Verified credits are awarded when a student has passed a class and has also demonstrated their knowledge that was required in that class or verified their knowledge. For many students, the verification of this knowledge is through the associated end of course SOL test. That is not the only way for students, though, to earn this verified credit. And on the screen, it lists a number of other options for students to earn the verified credits. And these options are available to all students. Once again, for additional information, please contact your child's school. Starting with the standard diploma, I want to show some of the basic requirements for earning the standard diploma. On this screen, you can see a chart that represents which courses are required and how many credits are required. And it actually corresponds to information that is on our website. And let me flip over to the website to show you. I have pulled up the graduation requirements and course planning page, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the graduation requirements for first-time ninth graders in 2018, 19, and beyond. I'm going to pull that one up because I believe the majority of the audience today has students who started ninth grade in 2018, 19, and beyond. However, I know there are some of you who have children who started ninth grade before 2018 and 19. In that case, you can look for the corresponding grade level that your child started ninth grade. Once I click on the graduation requirements for first-time ninth graders in 2018-19 school year and beyond, it brings up the information I mentioned to you already, starting with the standard diploma. And here's the chart that I referenced in the PowerPoint. You can see by looking at this chart, students must earn 5 verified credits. And once again, those credits are awarded to students who have passed the class and then have verified their knowledge that was learned in that class, often through the SOL test, but there are a number of other options available as well. For students who started ninth grade in 2018-19, we can see, once again, they must earn 5 verified credits. When we look at the standard credits, and those are the credits that are earned when a student passes a class, we can see that students who started ninth grade in 2018-19 must earn 22 standard credits. This is one place where it might look different depending on where when your students started ninth grade. So once again, if your child did not start ninth grade in 2018-19 and beyond, please make sure you open the corresponding page for your child's year. On the left-hand side, it tells us the subject areas, and we can see that in English, students must earn 4 standard credits. These standard credits are awarded as students take English 9, English 10, English 11, and English 12. They also must earn 2 verified credits. For many students, this is the reading and writing SOLs. As we look at math, science, social studies, we can see that each of those have a note that corresponds with those subject areas. And when you look at the website, you will scroll down and see that those notes will typically tell you which courses are appropriate in order to meet the required credits. And then as you move to the right for each subject area, you can see how many standard credits are required and how many verified credits are required. In addition to the core content areas, we can see that world language, fine arts, or career and technical education courses are required for students who started ninth grade in 2018-19. There's also an economics and personal finance requirement. There is a place for their electives. They must have 4 credits from electives. And then note clarifies what type of electives and indicates if they must be sequential or not. There's also the requirement that students who started 9th grade in 2018, 19, and beyond take an AP, honors, or IB course, or earn a career and technical education credential, and we will talk more about that in a little bit. And then lastly, there is a first aid, CPR, and AED training requirement, which is required for all students working towards a standard diploma who started 9th grade in 2018, 19, and beyond. And this training comes in the health and PE classes that your child will be participating in. Scrolling down on this web page, we get to the information on the Advanced Studies Diploma. And once again, the Advanced Studies Diploma table shows that our students must earn 5 verified credits, and this time it is 26 standard credits. And as you look at the chart and the subject areas and the standard credit columns, you will be able to see what the differences are. And once again, pay attention to the notes that are at the bottom. Scrolling down on the web page, as I mentioned previously, there's information on the Applied Studies Diploma. The Applied Studies Diploma is awarded to students with disabilities who complete the requirements of their IEP and do not meet the requirements for any other diploma option. We're going to first talk about the Applied Studies Diploma, and then we're going to come back to the Standard Diploma. If your child is going to earn an Applied Studies Diploma, one frequently asked questions by both parents and students is, what can they do with the Applied Studies Diploma? Also on the Fairfax County website is a link to information on post-secondary options for students earning an Applied Studies Diploma. To find this information on the web, just go to www.fcps.edu and search for Applied Studies Diploma. As you look at the information on the Applied Studies Diploma, the first thing it lets you and your child know is that they are able to come back to school in Fairfax County as long as they continue to live in Fairfax. And when they come back to Fairfax, they can continue to work towards a standard diploma, and or they may decide that they would like to work on their career skills. And there are a number of options available to them, such as the Special Education Career Center and Career and Technical Education Academy classes. As I mentioned, they're able to come back to Fairfax and until they earn that standard diploma. And once they earn the standard diploma, they are then no longer eligible for services in Fairfax County Public Schools, or until the year that they turn 22 after September 30th. So if they have a birthday in November and they turn 22 that year, they can come to school that whole school year. But if they turn 22 before September 30th, they are not able to come to school that year. If your child decides that they do not want to come back to Fairfax, they are able to consider a community college with the Applied Studies Diploma. While they may attend Virginia community colleges, such as the Northern Virginia Community College or NOVA, we would like for you to know that they are not going to be eligible for all types of financial aid. Some financial aid programs do not recognize the Applied Studies Diploma and therefore will not award a student with financial aid. And there are other financial aid programs that do recognize it. And so be aware that that might be one impact of earning an Applied Studies diploma. Students who have earned the Applied Studies diploma will also be asked to take a test when they start to attend at NOVA, and that will help determine if they need to take a developmental English or developmental math class. In addition to attending post-secondary education such as NOVA, this website has information on other certificate or alternative programs. And I'm scrolling down slowly, hopefully not making you sick as we scroll through this. And then there's also information on employment, both competitive employment and supported employment, depending on what's most appropriate for your child. Coming back to our presentation, so we looked at the standard diploma, both the standard credits and the verified credits, the advanced studies diploma, and the applied studies diploma. If you need additional information on the applied studies diploma, please contact your child's Employment and Transition Representative, or ETR, for more information. Now we're going to delve into the standard diploma. As I talked about the standard diploma and we talked about verified credits, I mentioned that there were a number of options for students to earn verified credits other than the standard of learning test. And some of these options are available to all students in Fairfax County. And for those, you would want to talk to your school's counselor. There are also some options that are available only to students with disabilities. And these options are called credit accommodations. As you talk about credit accommodations at your child's school, many times the conversation will be a collaborative conversation with both your child's case manager and school counselor. Because of the number of different options that apply to students depending on what year they are in high school or when they started ninth grade, the information varies from student to student. This conversation also comes up when you're working with your school team to talk about the student's transition plan. While discussing the diploma options on the transition plan, the school team, for appropriate students, will talk about credit accommodations. If it is determined that the school team, including you, would like to explore credit accommodations, there are eligibility forms that must be filled out. Before we go into the process, I wanted to give some information on the different types of credit accommodations that are available. The first group of credit accommodations help a student earn the standard credits that are required for the standard diploma. The first type of credit accommodation for standard credits, so once again, that means they have taken a class and passed it. The first option is the use of Part 1 courses to meet the core credit requirements. There are students, both with disabilities and without disabilities, who take a class such as Algebra 1, Part 1, before they take Algebra 1. For any student in Fairfax who does this, the Algebra 1 class counts as a math credit. For most students, that Algebra 1 Part 1 class counts as an elective credit. If your child has a credit accommodation, they can use the Algebra 1 Part 1 class to earn a math credit. So rather than that class counting as an elective, it counts as one of those 3 required math credits. So if they take and pass Algebra 1 Part 1 and Algebra 1, they will be done with 2 of the required 3 math standard credits. The other standard credit that there's an accommodation for is the use of personal living and finance, which is a class, to satisfy the economics and personal finance requirement of the standard diploma. Now let's look at the credit accommodations for verified credits. Once again, the verified credits are the credits that you earn after you take a class and pass it, and then the student has demonstrated or verified their knowledge through another means. We talked about that this is typically done through the SOL, but there are a number of other options. And for students with disabilities who qualify, they have some credit accommodations that will help them earn the verified credits. The first credit accommodation that is available to students who are eligible and appropriate for the credit accommodations, and they can have either a IEP or a 504 plan, is the expanded expedited retake range. In a typical school year, students who earn a score of 375 or 399 on the SOL are eligible to retake the SOL within a short time period, with the thought that with some quick remediation and quick retesting, they may be able to get their score up to 400. And for the SOL, a score of 400 is a passing score. And therefore, all students who score between a 375 and a 399 are able to retake the SOL in that short window in order to get their score up to 400. During typical school years, students who score below 375 are not able to retake the SOL automatically in that short window unless they have a credit accommodation. So this credit accommodation allows for our students with disabilities who score between a 350 and a 374 on the SOL to retake the SOL within that window in the hopes of getting their score up to a 375 or above. As I mentioned, during this 2020-21 school year, this option is actually available to all students, and so it is not a required credit accommodation this school year, but in typical school years, it would be a required credit accommodation. Now, one might be asking, why are we trying to get our students' scores up to a 375? And that goes to the next bullet. All students in Fairfax have the ability to earn a locally awarded verified credit for some of their verified credits. Depending on the year, the number may change and be different. The locally awarded verified credit, or LAVC, is earned when a student has taken the class and passed it, and they have received a score of 375 to 399 on the SOL, and a committee at the school is able to look at a form that is filled out by school staff and verify and say that, yes, the child has demonstrated the knowledge required for the class. And therefore, this group at the school is awarding this locally awarded verified credit. What the credit accommodation does for students with disabilities is it allows appropriate students with disabilities to use the LAVC for all 5 required verified credits. So this credit accommodation, like I said, allows a student to earn all of the required verified credits through the LAVC process, if appropriate. When I mentioned there are 5 verified credits, that's going back to that chart we looked at on the website that said for students who are entering high school in 2018, 19, and beyond, must earn 5 verified credits. If your child entered high school in a year when they had to earn 6 verified credits, then they would need to earn, of course, all 6 verified credits. The last verified credit accommodation, is the special permission locally awarded verified credit accommodation. And the special permission locally awarded verified credit accommodation is for students who take the SOL and receive a score below 375. And we are going to go into that in more detail in a moment. But first, let's look at the credit accommodations consideration process. The first part of the process is to answer the qualifying questions and supporting documentation. And then the team will write the justification statement. And lastly, the team will look at the specific credit accommodations and consider the appropriate one. On your screen now are the questions that are included in the credit accommodations eligibility form. These questions are considered by the IEP team or 504 knowledgeable committee, and they only have to be considered or answered one time. Once we have gone through and said yes to all the different questions, the IEP team or 504 knowledgeable committee must then also provide a justification statement. The justification statement is summarizing why the team has determined that the student is eligible for credit accommodations. And you could see at the bottom of this that it cannot be based on any specific categorical label. And it also cannot be based off of excessive absences, the belief that the student is going to fail the test, and the student does not need the test in order for it to be promoted or for graduation. Once the team writes the justification statement, they then get to the Section 3 of the eligibility form. These are the different credit accommodations that are available to students with disabilities. The first one you'll notice is the credit accommodations being identified at a later date. This allows you and your child's school team to consider the criteria for credit accommodations and to have that conversation early in the student's high school career. And then to indicate that at that time, we're not sure which credit accommodation is going to be required. This box can be checked at any time, and then it can also then be unchecked as you all finalize the different options that are available and appropriate. The next one is the expanded use of the locally awarded verified credit that we discussed, and that is followed by the expanded expedited retake range. The next 3 talk about using the Part 1 section of the different classes that are listed here. So you can see that Part 1 can be used as a math credit for Algebra 1, as a math credit if you take Geometry Part 1 and Geometry, and for a science credit if you take Biology Part 1 and then Biology. As a reminder, it can only be used as the core content credit if the student takes the corresponding class. So a student who has taken Algebra 1 Part 1 and Algebra has 2 math credits. If they then take Geometry Part 1, some people would think that would mean they would have their 3 required math credits. But the Geometry Part 1 only counts as a math class when the student takes and passes the geometry class itself. And so the student would also need to take geometry in order to get the required credits. The next one is the use of the personal living and finance course that we discussed. And then lastly is the special permission credit accommodation for locally awarded verified credit. And that's what we're going to jump into now. The special permission locally awarded verified credit, you might have noticed it has the locally awarded verified credit as a part of the title. And it does build on the process that is required for the locally awarded verified credit that we discussed previously. However, this one has that initial part of the title, special permission. And with that, it indicates to us that there is a more involved process than what we must go through for the typical locally awarded verified credit. It is a 3-step process that starts with the IEP and 504 teams considering whether or not it's required and answering the appropriate questions. Then there's a process for submitting this information to the Virginia Department of Education. And when it comes back from the Virginia Department of Education, then it goes back to your child's school for consideration of the LAVC. And we're going to dive into each of those steps now. On your screen are the are the questions on the criteria form. The first question is asking if the student has passed or is passing the subject or course based off a non-modified curriculum. So I want to take a moment to talk about what that means. A non-modified curriculum means that your child is showing the expectations required for that class. A modified curriculum would mean that the child is showing content that is below the expectation for that class. Many of our students with disabilities are participating in their content classes with accommodations and supports. And for the most part, those are okay and expected. That is what we do to help our students with disabilities. As long as your child is still showing and expected to show the same expectations for the class as all students, then they are okay. So in Algebra 1, as long as your child is still showing the knowledge that is expected in Algebra 1, that is considered non-modified, as long as, like I said, the supports that they're receiving and accommodations are still providing them that opportunity and the student is demonstrating the knowledge expected in Algebra 1. When you talk with your child's teacher or the school team, you might hear them talk about how they adapt assignments or modify assignments. For the most part, they're using the terms the way we used to use them. And it's still a common use of the terms, but it's saying that they are making adjustments in order to help your child access the content. In most cases, the changes that are being made and that are required for your child are going to be okay, and it still lets them show the class level content. However, if you do hear your child's teacher mention this, you do want to make sure you clarify if the student is still able to show the knowledge expected by the class. There are some students with disabilities who are participating in classes, and we modify the curriculum to the level that is appropriate for the child, and it is below what is expected for the class. If that is what is being done, then when the team considers this first question, the answer would be no, because they did not show grade level content knowledge. Like I said, though, for many of our students, we are making changes to what they are seeing when we instruct them and how they show their knowledge, but it is still okay because they are showing the grade level knowledge. The next question is talking about whether or not the student has taken the SOL and scored below a 375. And the third question prompts the team to ensure that it's the student's disability that is preventing them from showing their knowledge on the SOL rather than another reason. For example, is it due to their disability, or was it they worked really late the night before and weren't able to sleep, and then they couldn't show their knowledge on the SOL? So we're making sure that the student's score on the SOL was impacted by their disability and not extenuating circumstances. The last two questions talk about making sure we have provided your child all of the appropriate accommodations up to this point. The first one deals with the appropriate test accommodations. While the question says, or the statement in this case says, that we have exhausted all allowable test accommodations, it's all of the appropriate test accommodations. So if read aloud is appropriate for your child, we want to make sure the SOL was given to your child with read aloud. However, read aloud is not appropriate for all students with disabilities and not necessary for all students. Therefore, we don't need to give read aloud as an accommodation to a student for whom it's not appropriate. When this first came out, there was some misunderstanding, and some people did think this meant we had to give students all possible test accommodations. And that's why I'm clarifying it's only the appropriate test accommodations. And this is something that typically happens when you meet with your IEP team or 504 knowledgeable committee and talk about the required accommodations on an ongoing basis. This is a very common conversation. So the answer to question number 4 typically is an easy yes. But something may have come out recently that we've learned about your child that has made us realize that there is an accommodation that is appropriate for them that we have not tried yet. And with that new bit of information, we would want to try that accommodation on the SOL first before moving forward with this special permission, locally awarded verified credit. The last one is wanting to make sure we have exhausted all allowable credit accommodations as appropriate for the child. And so this one is saying, for example, if your child has taken the SOL and scored, let's say, a 370, if it's appropriate for the child, we would want them to retake the SOL and see if they could get a 375. Now, for some students, depending on the content area, their disability, and our experience with the child, the team may know or may fully believe that retaking the SOL, trying to get a score above 375, is really not in the best interest of this child, and he will not, or in this case, the child will not necessarily earn the 375 because of how their disability impacts their ability to show their knowledge on the SOL. But once the IEP team or 504 knowledgeable committee has considered the 5 questions, which were written here as statements, they will then go ahead and write that justification statement. You'll notice that the justification statement, and actually some of the other questions, are using verbiage which are specific to an individual class, such as here we have that the student is showing sufficient knowledge to pass this course. When I talk about credit accommodations in general, I said that the questions and the criteria only had to be done one time. Students who are being considered for the special permission locally awarded verified credit accommodation need to be considered for each verified credit that they're going for separately. So if we are trying to earn the verified credit for, let's say, math and science and English using the special permission locally awarded verified credit, this form and conversation would have to happen separately for algebra, another conversation for biology, and another conversation. Well, they can all happen at the same time, but we have to complete the questions separately then for, again, reading and writing. And the reason for that is because a child's disability is going to impact them differently in different classes. And so the state has put this process in place to ensure that it is appropriate for the student to earn the special permission locally awarded verified credit, or to be considered for the special permission locally awarded verified credit on a class-by-class basis. Once the justification statement is written, the IEP team or 504 knowledgeable committee is done with their part of this conversation or process. And that means that your part as the parent is also done with the process. Once the IEP information is in the form and you've signed off on the IEP, or if the student's old enough, they've signed off on the IEP, the school team would then compile information that is required by the Virginia Department of Education. That information is then sent to central office. When it's at central office, we have a process for verifying the information. And then we submit the information to the Virginia Department of Education. The Virginia Department of Education reviews the information and they send back their response to the school system. When the Virginia Department of Education responds to Fairfax, they are telling us one of two things. They are telling us that they need more information, or we are approved to move forward. So the IEP team and knowledgeable committee, they did not say the student earned the verified credit through the special permission locally awarded verified credit. The IEP team and knowledgeable committee were saying that they believe the student should be considered for the special permission locally awarded verified credit. Once they were done, it goes to the state as outlined on this screen. The state, once again, is not providing credit to the student. The state is saying, once again, yes, you can move forward, or we need more information. Once we receive the green light to move forward, we send it back to the school team. And at the school, when I said school team, I didn't mean the student's IEP team. Each school has a locally awarded verified credit committee. This is the group of staff that considers all of the locally awarded verified credit considerations that come their way. And they now receive the information saying that this student should be considered for locally awarded verified credit. They do the consideration, and based on the evidence that they have reviewed, they can decide to award the locally awarded verified credit, which means, once again, the student then has that verified credit requirement for the standard diploma. They can deny the locally awarded verified credit. They can suggest participation in a remedial program and then retesting. Or they may require that more additional information be provided. This part of the process does not have an appeal process for parents or students. All right, so though that was all the information on the special permission locally awarded verified credit. And I know that credit accommodations and the special permission locally awarded verified credit specifically are very complicated processes. And that's why we encourage you to talk to your child's school, or if your child is over 18, encourage them to have the conversations if they haven't happened already. The last option that I wanted to discuss is the industry credential requirement. If you recall, for students who started ninth grade in 2018-19 and beyond, there was a component of earning or receiving their industry credential. For students who require this component, and it's not all students, but if you have a child who does require this component, the first way, the way that the majority of students receive this credit is to take the appropriate classes and then to pass the VDOE approved industry credentialing exam. The option that is available to students with disabilities is to meet the requirement through competencies. So they take the test, the exam that all students in the class take, and they don't pass. It is possible for the student to receive the credit required by demonstrating their knowledge through competencies. And that is where the teacher checks off that, yes, the student has demonstrated knowledge on each of the required standards. And this option must be in the student's IEP in order for the student to receive this credit. Thank you all for watching this presentation. I know it's a lot of information, especially without having the handout in front of you that goes along with your child's graduation year. I encourage you to find the document that's appropriate for your child, once again, based off the year they started ninth grade. Take a look at it. Credit accommodations and the special permission locally awarded verified credit accommodation can be considered and discussed at different times throughout your child's high school career. It is okay to start the conversations early. In some cases, though, you might start the conversation and the team will talk about why it's appropriate to move forward with the whole process, either to do it now, or in some cases, it may be determined, let's not do it now. We first want to try remediation and see how that works. Or it may be determined that there's a different SOL or a opportunity for the student to earn that verified credit that's coming down the road that is appropriate to try first. It's a very individual basis. These conversations are very individualized, as you could tell by the questions, and they're student specific. And that's why it's good for you to talk to your school team about these options to learn more. So once again, thank you for your time today. Please visit our website for more information and contact your school if you have any questions.